Hey, this is Clinton and Hillary, and welcome to BlackLantic, a podcast and media channel bringing East Coast voices to the world.
This week we are joined by Lance Sampson, aka AquaKultre, who we're so excited to be speaking with today. Our podcast is weekly with guests or topics, and you can find us anywhere. And now for the intro. There we go. That's cool. Our fun little intro. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start selfishly because I want to shout out the reason that part of the reason you're on the show, which I did say in the email, but I'm a huge fan of the band July Talk, Canadian Toronto band, and I happened to see them in Ottawa, and oddly enough, they follow the BlackLantic Instagram, although they don't follow me. And I was at a concert and I was actually bothering Leia to get this tattoo that I just got handwritten by her. And while she's handwriting this tattoo, Peter Dramanis of the band was like, I've got a list of people that I think you need to be interviewing who are doing great work in the East Coast. And number one name dropped was you. And so we've done some research. We've been listening. I'm so excited to have you on and so excited to hear that like cross musical love of over like from the East Coast to here. So I just wanted to shout out because I thought that was really sweet. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
Thanks for being on the show.
Shout out to July Talk, man. They're doing good work too. I'm doing good. I'm kind of well caffeinated at the moment. We just had supper. Jules is hanging out with Georgina, and Jamel's just kind of chilling. And I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. Yo, for real.
No, Thanks for being on the show. So you're living out there are you in the Halifax greater region? What's it called? HRM? The Halifax.
The GTA of Halifax.
Municipality?
Yeah, What's it called?
I think the regional
the
municipality.
HRM.
Yeah.
The HRM, yeah.
Yeah, Halifax.
So that's where you are?
Yeah, so I mean I grew up Halifax, north in Halifax, but I currently reside in Dartmouth.
Gotcha. Amazing.
Yeah.
So
very close.
No, I was just there last weekend. But okay, that's good to know. So what was it like for you growing up?
Growing up in the I'm just joking. Yeah,
you're gonna say the GTA again?
Yeah.
The GTA of Halifax?
Yeah.
And also, you speak a little bit about, you told us before that you did end up spending some time over in New Brunswick. And so, of course, like, because we're both from there, but we are, you know, BlackLantic. Tell us a little bit about the
kind of from there. I guess you can say I'm from here now.
Sorry. Well, you're in there now. That's true.
I've been here a while. Yeah. 13 years.
Word.
Tell us a bit about your cross bordering.
Okay. You guys can still hear me pretty good, right?
Very well. Yeah.
Okay. So, I grew up, I'm 30 years old. So I grew up in a spot called, it's probably like 20 minutes away from Halifax. I spent most of my life in Halifax, like throughout my youth years. I went to a school called St. Pat's Alexander, and then I went to high school here, which is Citadel High. And I did kind of travel a little bit in my teenage years, but I mainly grew up in Halifax. It wasn't that bad. Like, I find Halifax, Nova Scotia is truly like very unique in terms of like family and just like knowing everybody. Like, everybody knows everybody. And but it was hard as a teenager. That's for damn sure. 15. On my 16th birthday, my first year of high school, I actually moved to Moncton, New Brunswick, because my uncle lived up there, and I did a semester of high school in New Brunswick. It did not last. It was very hard for me. I could not handle it. I don't even think I got any credits. Like, that's like, I just was up there maybe for 2 months and came back home, and I just been kind of here ever since, and just holding it down. Really, that's all I can do. But it was all right. Halifax is all right.
Just because there was noise in the background of my life, but did you say that you're 30?
I am 30. Yeah, I was born in
So
1992.
then I just turned 29, so we would have cross-connected between what we were discussing before the show of all of the lack of Black people in Moncton in schooling and whoever was teaching drama at Moncton High. But yeah, I would have been one of the only 5 Black people at Harrison Trimble while you were one of the only ones at Moncton High.
No,
so
for
I
real.
definitely relate to what you were saying, and I would say that it hasn't changed enough in the like decade-ish since we've both been gone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I tried to fit in too. I tried to do what I could to fit in. Like I got on the football team and everything. I tried to do all that stuff just to kind of, get my feet wet. But all that, I wasn't ready.
I'm guessing you're saying you're like the area you grew up in. It was it a primarily Black area, and then the culture shock of Moncton was what was too much for you, or was there another aspect?
I think okay. So Spryville is very, very diverse, very interracial. Like you couldn't even tell whites from blacks there. It's very like people acting the same. Like we all like very poor community. Everybody just kind of very tight knit community. Like I remember I left the house being outside by myself at like 4 years old taking buses, and that was mainly because I was really super comfortable. And everywhere as I went, parents were always looking out for each other. They would call each other's parent, like their friends, and be like, "Yo, your child's here," and all that. So I felt really comfortable being outside all the time. It was very cool. Came into Halifax, more central Halifax, and it was definitely a culture shock because I didn't know anybody, and I was around predominantly Black people, different type of Black people, like for different communities, like North Preston, East Preston, Dartmouth, and it was just definitely different. But I find like the culture shock of just the French language, like I found was really hard for me going from Halifax to Moncton because they were just. And it was interesting. It was a culture shock for them as well. Like just having this interesting, like different, like, this Halifax Black kid coming through like this different type of tone, different type of slang, obviously 6'2", huge. Like they just weren't ready for that either. Right.
Absolutely.
And I came up my own swagger, my own demeanor. So like, it was just hard. It was definitely hard. And like I said, I don't think I was truly ready to adapt to being around people outside of my community. It was really hard to try to make friends there.
And Black people can be very different no matter where you're from. You mentioned even like different communities within Halifax, but all over the country, and maybe it was just different than anything they'd seen in Moncton as well.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Halifax and seeing how Black people communicate and deal with each other here, and then going to Toronto, it was a culture shock for me too, because I'm used to walking down the street. I see brothers and sisters. How you doing? Hope you have a good day. Nods. I go up to Toronto. Christ, they ain't even looking at you. I'm just like, well, what's going on here? Montreal too. I was like, what is going on here? You guys don't say what's up to people?
We nod. We nod. That's it. We just nod.
Yeah.
There's no how you have a good day. You might get a. That's it. Just
No, because
nod.
listen, I'm telling you, I went to. Are you guys familiar with Bambi, the DJ Bambi?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so Bambi, I'm pretty sure is from Toronto. Used to DJ for Mickey Blanco. I'm pretty sure Mickey Blanco. I don't know if they still do. But I went to a jerk night. Like they put on these like really cool nights, dance parties, and they feed you, right? They feed you jerk chicken. And I went there, and there was a DJ up on stage, and I really appreciated the night. So as soon as that DJ left to come outside to get some air, I decided to go get some air too. They're out there smoking. I want to go. I'm a very social cigarette smoker. I go out there, man, that was so cool. Like, that was a great night. You're playing the greatest music. Cuz looked at me like I had 10 hits and turned around. I said, okay, that's how it is up here. So I was like, whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's
That
too
is
bad.
weird.
That's weird.
Clinton, it was weird. It was weird, cuz. And, but I just kind of brushed it off and continued to get my two-step on because he was playing good music.
Bambi from Toronto?
I think like I haven't really dived too deep into Bambi's history, but I know that when I seen them, they were repping Toronto. So
I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I don't think we're as friendly as like, how are you? Hope you're having a nice day kind of thing. But I find if you could stop someone long enough to like just get their attention in Toronto, they're pretty nice. But maybe it depends on where you are, and a nightclub might be a bit different too.
No, yeah, it's a nightclub. You know, ain't no one trying to hear nobody. They just trying to get in and get out. It's 2
Yeah.
a.m. I'm trying to go to sleep.
Th-
I get
That's
it.
fair. Although I will say, like, and it's something I've talked about a lot on this podcast and in several places, that not so much the language of it all, but that for me being mixed and growing up like doing French immersion, I never felt like my French was good enough to talk to the Black immigrants who either were the children of students who went to UWM or they themselves were here for various reasons. But I felt that same thing of like, oh, I don't really know what you're saying. I don't know what it's like to be your type of Black, so I'm just going to keep to myself, which was isolating and alone because Moncton was Moncton, as you learned, and definitely different from the experiences that you had in Nova Scotia. And speaking of those experiences, I'm curious just because, and like a lot of my perspective of Nova Scotia is Clinton and I've had the honor of interviewing prolific author George Eliot Clark several times, who's written about Halifax, North Preston, growing up there in the 60s, all of like the different cultures and dynamics of white people, interracial people, how they've all connected, and also talking a lot about the racism that he's faced there. But it sounds to me like you're describing at least a tight-knit community until you left and started to explore more central Halifax. Have you had any experiences that were more negative that you're comfortable sharing, or has it been mainly positive because there are more of the same type, I will say, of Black people in that area, or what was that like for you?
Well, shout out to George Eliot Clark, but he grew up in the 60s. It was a lot different back then, right? We're talking about serious racism, right? And there's a lot of ignorance still, like, you know what I mean? But I grew up in Spryville, which is super, super tight-knit interracial community. Like, there wasn't a lot of racism out there. Yes, it happened. If you're looking at like the history of Spryville, you look at the Carson Street riots, like we're talking like some serious racism. But like it didn't seem like there was a lot of it. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of like slurs and nothing like that. Even going into Central Halifax, mind you, the square, which I moved to, Uniac Square, is a super tight knit community as well. Like when I got settled there, like I felt really comfortable. You know what I mean? Like it's one of the better communities, I think, in terms of like camaraderie and like growing up with like your cousins. Like it's all family. But it's like I don't recall growing up with a lot of like racial tension. Citadel High School, when I went to Citadel High, like there was a lot of like beefs, right? A lot of black on black neighborhood beefs. There was a lot of like school to school tension, like that just resulted in fighting all the time. But like there's been, but I get more into the ignorant racist side of things. I don't even want to say racist. I want to say super ignorant, because I mean, when you look at the indigenous community in Nova Scotia, like there is some serious racism towards that. Like if you're looking at like just the history of like the fight that they've been going through with like just their fishing rights and like the history, like all that stuff. There's a lot of racism going on there with that. Like, and I found I fronted a lot of ignorance and racism when I got into the workforce. Like when I started getting into trades and like I really started to be around older guys and guys that have never been held accountable for what they were talking about, and I found a lot of it there. Like, but between like growing up and going to school, like I didn't really find a lot of it, but there was definitely a lot of like black on black tension. That's for damn sure. Neighborhood to neighborhood tension, which I find I attribute that to just a lot of the stuff we were listening to, a lot of the stuff we were watching growing up.
Yeah.
But,
and
you definitely do see it. Go ahead, Clinton.
No, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Go ahead. Were you? It's like we are happy. Like it's great. We're happy to hear when there's not a lot of racial experiences. We're not hoping to hear of a lot of like negativity and racial experiences, but we do know it's out there. But it's really refreshing when we hear people say that it was very minimal. So that's great, and I can understand being in the trades. Yeah, I get that too. Like I used to be in like the trades for a while as well. And we can get back to that later.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just saying,
no?
I was just gonna say trades is a whole different beast, because like you're dealing with a lot of generational white people handing down jobs to their family and their cousins, and generation of white people that have never grown up or been around black people in their life, and when they have, they're like neighborhood to neighborhood. Like it was very very ignorant and very like what they've been taught and like media wise how they should be dealing with Black people. So when you get someone like me, 6'2", 265 pounds, who ain't really with that shit, if you say something out of term, I'm going to talk to you, but I'm not going to be like aggressive about it. But I'm more on the forefront of like putting knowledge into your ear, like, yo, like learning the history, like giving you the history of Black in Nova Scotia, and rather than being violent, because being violent, that doesn't stop anything. It doesn't change anything. I would rather change somebody's mindset and perspective and teach them about the Black history in Nova Scotia, so like to give them more insight how to deal with moving forward. You know what I mean?
That's really deep, and I do hope you were successful at doing that, even if just a little bit. Like anytime something like that came up, I feel like we've got a nice basic blueprint of you. I feel like I understand a little tiny bit about the way you grew up and where you're from. So why don't we hop into some music a bit? How with that upbringing in life you had, how did you get into music?
I got into music. I was exposed to music. My mother would, when she cleaned the house, she would listen to a lot of country, and she attributes her love of country with my dad. My dad's from his family's from grew up in Liverpool, Nova Scotia, very rural, and loves country. So he brought that love to country to my mother, and she loves it now. I mean, she can't sing, but hey, she does her thing. So I mean, I grew up on country, but like as soon as we got the TV on to Much Music, I grew up really enjoying Much Music, like indie rock music and just Canadian music in general. I got really I fell in love with indie rock music, especially the playlist of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show called Radio Free Roscoe, but Radio Free Roscoe, I found like really opened up my palette for different types of music, different types of indie rock music, guitar music. But I like as soon as, because like my love for music comes from watching Much Music, ingesting Much Music all the time, Radio Free Roscoe, watching animes too. Animes really opened up my palette for like certain types of music, certain type of scores. But as soon as I got into the BT neo soul era, like once I started listening to Erica, once I started listening to Common and like Music Soul Child and like Bilal, like once I started getting into those guys, D'Angelo, like I feel like it opened up a lot. Like when I got into hip hop and all that, it opened up a lot because I started to realize a lot of the music, great jazz music, right? So then you start really digging in deep. You start finding out where these samples are coming from. It just opens up your palette. So like my love for music comes from listening, a listening standpoint, and I have a really good ear. Like I can point out certain, like when people are playing, I can point out where that harmony's going, or like what. I mean, I don't know, like but I know that on my dad's side, that's where that music bug comes from, because my dad, singer songwriter, my brothers, every single one of them, rappers, singer songwriters. On the Carvey side of my family, which is my mother's, he was a singer songwriter, played guitar, just like real folk music, just passing down songs that they've had in their families for years. And I feel like that's where it came from, because like I said, my mom can't sing. She got it going on though, but she can't sing. So yeah, that's where it comes from. I think it definitely, it's generational. Like it was passed down to me, and I just know it's within me through the generations of passing down that knowledge.
That's incredible. And I will out Clinton as being potentially enthralled, because he did have a bit of a rap career and is a musician himself. But he would never say it himself.
Shout out to Clinton.
Shout out to Clinton.
Hey.
Was Clinton your artist name? Like, did you?
No. For a lot of my time in Toronto, I went by Lyrical Vision. And then years down the road, I switched it up to the Show Doctor. And I went to school for audio engineering. I rapped for like 16 years.
Word.
I put out 2 CDs, but not with like the barcode on them, like mixtapes. When I came to New
Straight up.
Brunswick, I was, we toured for like 2 years straight. We probably did 80 shows in 2 years. And in Toronto, I did shows regularly too. But I haven't really picked up the mic in about 8 or 9 years. I just do it for fun now.
You're featured on some like local people's CDs recently back home, and so we're itching. I'm trying to push them back in. We're gonna get like a BlackLantic mixtape out there.
No rush,
Hey,
no rush. I'll let y'all know. That's a good idea, though. That's a good idea, Hillary.
Hey, write it down.
Uh,
I want
manifest
royalties
it.
because I said it.
Yeah, I would have never brought it up, but yeah, I spent a lot of time in music, and I'm loving hearing your stories, like the background, how you got into it, your mom singing, and my mom loves to sing
Yeah.
too, but she does. Sorry, mom, she can't carry a note that well, but I always enjoy hearing her sing, and the rich
No, that's the same.
where
That's
you
the same.
picked up all the different from like all the different musical genres that really comes out in your music, I think. Yeah, so I did really enjoy that answer, Hillary.
There
Yeah,
you go.
most certainly. Like Mom Dukes too. Like she was like real into that '90s like R&B, right? And I feel like my sister gets a lot of that from her as well because my mom would put on certain '90s R&B tracks and we'd be just like, fuck, damn. I mean, it was super hypersexualized, but it was the greatest music ever.
Yep.
The '90s was wild, yeah.
Yep.
The '90s was wild. And like when they talk about like, yo, I don't want my kids listening to this now, I'm just like, listen,
It's not as
what
bad.
were we listening to back then? It's not as bad because even the '70s and '80s, you hear them old school soul men's talking that what were we listening to? I mean, it just wasn't as in your face as it was back like when BT and Much Music came out. But what ifs? It's the greatest. It's the greatest.
The greatest.
Amazing. To the point of all of the different things in your life that have influenced your musical career, I was curious about what has been your musical drive and inspiration, especially today after listening to, I want to get the name right, Afrivillian Funk, which I super enjoyed on my commute today to the vet, because I don't know that people, I'm going to generalize and think that maybe not a lot of people would necessarily think of people from Africville with a specific type of funk. And then I felt like I listened to it and I understood. And I also, we like to dismantle the idea that Black people have to be rappers. And so I would be interested in also hearing how you would describe your music on top of where all that inspiration comes from.
It's kind of hard for me to describe like the music that I put out or like the music that I do because I find like I had to change my name because I used to go by Lex. I used to go by my nickname. That was my street name. All my homies used to call me Lex. There's a lot of like trauma and a bunch of bad shit that was like associated with that name. So I made sure that it rapping and started recording. I found that I was only talking about one thing. Like I was talking a lot of like the old stuff and like basically incriminating myself half the time. So I was like, I needed to change my name because I knew like I knew that I wasn't boxed in with just like like hard street rap, you know what I mean? So, and like I found that I was writing a lot of songs. I was writing a lot of different songs. I was writing a lot of melodic hooks. I was singing. So I was just like, I got to change my name up so it allows me to be more creative. So I changed my name from Lex to AquaKultre, which all that really means is like, because I'm plumber by trade. I'm a red seal plumber. All that really means is like career in plumbing, that water. And I mean, there's a lot of other stuff I can probably try to get deep, but it's just something that I'm thinking about now. But like when I thought about that name, it was because I'm a career plumber, but just my love for music in general. So AquaKultre, that's why I kind of changed it. And it just opened up so much things. And I find like, it's just how I'm feeling. It's just how I'm feeling within like the climate of what's going on around me that really influences the style that I'm approaching with in that recording session, right? So there's a lot of different elements, and like I do influences that I grew up with to finish certain songs. So there's a lot of styles, there's a lot of different things, and like you'll hear like the things that I was listening to as I was growing up within my music. That's how I kind of like I try to put it together. But I feel like it will change through how people ingest your music too, right? So like people might have a different definition of what my music is compared to what I do, and I don't really like to put a definition to it because I know that people are ingesting music in different ways and like feel about it and what they think it might be. But Afrivillian Funk, it's funny that you mentioned that one because like that's one of my favorite songs that I've ever done. and I feel like it's one of my favorites because there's like a generational thing there. Like Tremaine Howe, his family's also from Africville. When you go down my line, my family's from Africville, and the way that we connected was very like, it was comfortable. Like I just was like, as I was creating the album Don't Trip, I was just like, man, like how come nobody is making real deal neo soul shit over here that's actually playing the instruments? Like no one's all, they're sampling. It's just old school era hip hop. I love old school era hip hop, but like, can someone give me something different, right? And like as I was manifesting that, and this is what happens. You think about a Mercedes, you start seeing ads, right?
Yep.
I feel like it was just like that thing where it's like I started manifesting this, and then boom, I looked on Instagram, and Trobiz was creating African funk on Instagram, and I hit him up immediately. I was like, bro, send me that now. Sends me it, and I recorded that thing and sent it back to him in a day. So it was like, it was really cool that we connected, and like, and I was probably very ignorant at the fact that I didn't know that he was, because I'm still young. I'm getting into the game. I'm learning who's who. And I was definitely ignorant to the fact that this man's an OG in the game. Like he'd been on here creating music. He'd been on here ensemble and like big bands and stuff. So, and then when you read about his family history compared to my family history, it all stems from Africville. So it's like, it was cool that we got together to do that. And the African funk it's not necessarily like the feeling or the groove. It's just more like just the way that Africvillians were treated. And this, I was trying to manifest like how they would that wasn't violent. I try to think about, like, how Crump is more like, it's more, what's up, babe? Georgina's coming through. How Crump is more like they're dancing, and it's because like they're dancing through protests. And I kind of wanted to create something that was like that. The African funk was like how they were protesting, but in grooves and dancing, right? I wanted to kind of manifest that. I didn't want to think about, oh, we're going to protest, and everybody thinks it's a protest and it's violent, right? Just the images that we see on news and like the images that they want us to see anyways is very violent. But I want to kind of flip that script and be like Africa, where it's like, okay, we got a problem, we're going to dance this stuff out, we're going to ritualize it. And I just kind of want to manifest that energy with African funk. What's up, babe?
I feel that. First of all, wow, I would have never guessed that the name AquaKultre originated with a background in plumbing. And congrats on having a red seal. That's amazing.
Thank you.
But I'm sure you don't have to answer this, but I feel like sometimes when someone looks at someone's art and they try to interpret all the things that may mean, like the term aquaculture, I think you can dive into so many different aspects of art, how culture and flowing through culture and water and embracing it, and how water cleanses, all kinds of things. But that's amazing. And I know you're not classifying your music, but neo soul, I was trying to think of like what that one song encompasses, and neo soul fits it really well. Your daughter's adorable.
You can't hear it. Just give me a sec, okay?
She can hear. She can hear it after, though. You tell her that she's gonna.
You can hear it after, though. Yeah. Right now, I have to hone in on the.
We're making it. She can't hear it while we're making it.
We're making it. Yeah.
Amazing.
But sorry.
Don't be sorry. No sweat. I don't know if that's one of your more popular songs or not, but you can answer that in a second as well. But you came out with an album just this past summer, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And also, like, again, you said Africvillian Lean is one of your favorite.
African funk.
Yeah, funk is one of your favorite. Sorry,
funk.
I'm getting distracted. Yeah. Is one of your favorite songs? Yeah.
Most certainly. Like one of my favorite songs that we released. African funk, and that would be on the album that got released in July last summer. Thanks, babe. Which is Don't Trip. And I mean, I'm just gonna brag and boast about it. Don't Trip is probably the greatest first date album that you can possibly put on. And and not even a first date album, like a date album. When you partner, this is something that you want to put on when you guys are coming home and winding down, right? This is something that you want to put on if you got the host party, you got more than 10 people, you're hosting something, right? This is the one that you want to put on. And the reason why I say that is because when you listen to them old school albums, 90s albums, right? Check this out. Next is Too Close. When you listen to Next is Too Close, what does it make you want to do? It makes you want to get up and dance, right? Baby, when we're grinding, I get so excited. Ooh, how I like it. Try, but I can't fight it. Come on, cuz. That song comes on, you're getting up and dancing. This whole album is like that. When every single one of those songs, any single one of those songs come on, that's why I feel like it's a perfect date album.
Oh man, I'll tell you, I watched the music video for "Don't Trip" twice yesterday, and I own a salon, and I put that on the playlist today because that vibe is just proper, and I haven't listened to the whole album yet, but I can't wait to get like into that. So what you're saying is there'll probably be more songs I want to put on my playlists, right?
I'm telling you guys, like this is gonna be the one. Like, if "Don't Trip" is where is the starting point, which it should be for everybody because that was a single, and shout out to Gigi because she started in that. But there's more than one song like that on it. You'll have it in your life forever. I guarantee. You chuck that on. Listen, you're gonna be listening to "Don't Trip" for the rest of your life. I guarantee you.
I hope I am. So that was your daughter in the music video. And so is that your family?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, so Georgina starred in it. It was a community effort. Shout out to Alex Kingsmill. Alex Kingsmill extended the
Was that a neighborhood you lived in? Sorry to cut here. Finish your shout out again. But was that a neighborhood you lived in too?
It's all good.
Yeah, it was
most
amazing.
certainly. So Alex Kingsmill came down. He extended the hand. He's from Toronto. He came down. He shot the video. And we just kind of really wanted to, every real community, people that are in my life, people who I love, I try to involve them in the project. So like we started in the neighborhood that we live in now, Appian Way over Dartmouth. And then we went over to Uniacke Square where I grew up. And then we ended up, we needed a host. So like, I'm also involved in a boot camp, what do you call it? Group Facebook, and the one who runs it is my neighbor across the street. So I was just like, would anybody happen to have like a big host that we can just use for the day? And it was actually my neighbor's sister who was just like, yo, I got a host that you can use. Like, come over. And she just allowed us to use her host for the day. And I was like, because you want to be in the video? She's like, oh no, it's all good. But then meanwhile, she was like, yeah, I wish I would have went in it. But I just try to keep everybody who's involved in my life and who is willing to give the time and energy to fulfill or bring the vision to life. I try to involve them in. So it was a community effort. That video was a community effort, as well as a lot of the videos I do. I try to keep it real community. I shoot for the stars, and like I'm very grateful for people to like. I'm very grateful for people to hear the vision and they're like, let's make it happen. You know what I mean? So we're grateful for that on the AquaKultre team.
Amazing. And in terms of it, like, first of all, like I said, I really enjoyed everything that I've heard so far. And to your point about it being stuck in your life forever, allegedly, as I saw 2 days ago, I think that the ECMA certainly think that it's worthwhile because you've been nominated for an ECMA. And you've also been nominated before, longlisted, I believe, for a Polaris Prize. So the accolades are coming. That's amazing. And congratulations. We've had several artists on before who've talked about these East Coast Music Awards, as well as Music New Brunswick and their awards, because that's where they were from, and the increase in diversity for these award shows. And I was just wondering if you had any opinion on the increase in diversity as being a nominee and hopefully a winner. Not that we're biased, but how does it feel to you the more that they like recognize Black musicians in these sort of more local awards in the music industry?
I think first of all, I think Polaris Prize is better. I think Polaris
well.
Well, that's an obvious, I think.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, for the last 3 Polaris Prize winners were all like acquaintances or like artists that I really, really love. Like, shout out to Havaya, shout out to Lido. Shout out to Cadence Weapon. Like, all these artists I really, really love. And I've gotten the chance to play with them. So I'm very glad to see that they won that. I think Polaris is the echelon, the upper echelon. So if you get into that, if you're into that bracket, you're you're basically living off of artistry for the rest of your life. But ECMAs, like I've never ever been a supporter of any of these arts or any of these awards around here in particular. Never. ECMA's never been a supporter of it. Music Nova Scotia, I haven't really been a supporter of it. Mainly because about awards, I don't in the slightest. What I did appreciate, what I did want to bring to the forefront this year, especially with this album, because we put so much work into it. Like we just wanted to make, I wanted to make sure that the people that were involved in creating this album were more shouted out than me. Because like, yeah, created the album, but like I wouldn't have been able to create the album or finish any of the projects without the help of the people that were involved. So like everybody that was involved that made this album what it is, the 20 or so artists that are on this album, it's them guys that made this album. So like they're winning it just as much as me, right? So I'm happy to be them this year because I want to make sure that they're recognized as much as just because I'm the face, who cares? But like I never cared about these awards. And I feel like a lot of awards could ditch. They could ditch any of the black categories, I think, because I feel like if anybody's winning an award, just allow them to win Best Music Award, not Best Black Music Award. You know what I mean? Like allow them to win Best Artist, not Best Black Artist. Because it's like one of those things. You're continuing to still put people in that. Yeah, they're still separating. And me and my wife were talking about this earlier. We all understand that it was to be more inclusive, right? And to show that they're being more diverse, but you're still being kind of separated by having these black categories, because I don't see no white category. I don't see no Best White Artist of the Year. You feel me?
Yep.
But I mean, like I'm glad to be a part of it this year, mainly because it's in Halifax. Mainly because I demand that my family is allowed and is involved in these things. So if it's comfortable for my family, then for my family, I'm not gonna be there. And all the other ECMAs and all the awards, they're outside of the city, right? So I wasn't doing a lot of that traveling, and most of the time you got to pay for everything when you're getting out there. It's like a showcase. Showcases never really give you that much money either, especially within the ECMAs of Music Nova Scotia, right? So you're getting picked for a showcase. You got a whole band with you, 6 people. I mean, it's gotten a lot better, mind you. It's gotten a lot better, but just over the years, this has been my experience with being asked to showcase at certain spots. You got 6 people in your band. They're only offering you so much. Like, it's not worth it. And yeah, there is a lot of opportunities with these showcases. Yes. I have been asked over the years thousands of times, could I be involved? But I wasn't ready to be involved in this process, in this conglomerate. I feel like I'm ready now. I feel like we got a show that stands up, and I feel like we have a chance to really change people's perspective on what shows look like this year and what they should look like and how they should feel.
Do you have a tour lined up?
Go ahead. Shout out to ECMAs though. No, not yet. I haven't toured yet. I haven't toured yet, ever.
Okay, so yeah, that little shout out to ECMAs. That's funny. No, and I hear you, and we've heard that sentiment reflected a lot, and that's really great. 2 weeks in a row, because last week, a quick plug, my sister who lives in Dartmouth, she's an internationally published author. She just released a book last week, and she was saying the same thing about women's fiction. She doesn't like people putting her in a women's fiction category, because it should just be fiction. So when it comes to music, having a black artist or black breakthrough artist or something, that's really separating, because it's there's not going to be a white one, and it's like, does that artist win the best artist award too automatically by default? If they win the best black artist, it's lifting up while tearing down at the same time. So I fully feel that.
It's pretty spooky. And mind you guys, Clinton and Hillary, there is so much talent in Halifax. Like when you go to East Preston, when you go to North Preston, and you see what those musicians are doing up there, the musicianship that they have, And just because they haven't released a song or anything like that, they're not getting recognized for the musicianship within these organizations. It says a lot. Like, no one should have to. I don't think you should have to put out an album, or the album's doing great or done great for you to win an award. I feel like a lot of these organizations are missing a key point in the musicianship, especially within the Black community. They still are, right? Because when you go to any of these Hammond's Plains, you go to any of these Black communities, man, these some cats out here that's been doing it for years, and they just been playing. Like, they're not worried about releasing music. They're just out here putting on great shows, and I think that's more important, putting on great shows.
A lot of the time it is like society based. Like, you have to be a member, you have to submit through a proper application. It's not really a measurement of raw talent or whether you put out an album. There's all kinds of hoops you have to jump through. But I love the fact that you don't care about awards, because that's probably why this would be your 6th award, because you're doing it for the love and the music and the culture, not so much for the accolades. And that probably makes your music so much more authentic. Were you going to say something, Hillary?
I was just going to point out something that you and I, Clinton, have talked about before too, which is like having a Black person, like a Black category, when so much of music is African history, Caribbean history, various Black histories. It's like you're giving white people awards for music and history that is founded in Black roots. And so really they should have the segregated titles. It's our music. Like, why? Why
exactly.
Are you playing us like this?
Best white country artist.
Yeah, best white country.
That's white.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be hilarious if that popped up in one of these organizations? Oh my God, the best white country.
Can you imagine the outrage?
Buddy, I would go to that awards. I would go to that and be like, you damn right, cuz. You better go get that award. Damn. You the first one. Go get that.
When I watch the Grammys this Sunday, I'm going to say that for every award, like to myself, to just jazz up the experience. Best white pop, Harry Styles. Because it's valid. So before we wrap it up, I do want to ask, so if you don't have a tour lined up, what is next for you? Are you already thinking about the next album? Do you just want to play locally? You mentioned, about the ECMAs going, and like, if it's good for the family, are you performing? Is there anything tied into that, or what's new for you? What's next for you?
They've asked me to perform at the ECMAs. I will be performing at the ECMAs televised. But like I said, I'm more focused on developing my set, our set, I should say. Like, we've been working pretty hard to make sure that we have a good show. We did do a few shows last year, but it was just more to get the whistle wet in the Maritimes, just make sure that everybody knows the tracks. Now we're on to the next level of wardrobe and choreography. We're gonna make sure we get all that stuff down packed, and like I said, create a good show. This year I'm working with 2B Theater. We're developing a show, which is a theater company that specializes in touring. So we're developing a show with them. I mean, eventually, like, we're eventually gonna get like a tour popping. I just don't like the idea of like 14 days straight shit. Like, I mean, if it's a weekend here, a weekend there, I mean, I'd rather do that, because I do have a family that does appreciate the extra set of hands around the house, I mean? So I like to be homestead. But there's definitely a few things, but we're focusing solely kind of right now on developing our show so that folks can come through and have an experience rather than, oh yeah, they're okay.
Stage presence is so important. And there is going to be another big show in Fredericton next year called Summer Salsa. I don't know if you've heard of that, but the first one kicked
I haven't.
off. Oh, I'll tell you about it after the show. The first one it was the first African Caribbean festival in Atlantic Canadian history, to my knowledge. So kind of like a Caravana came to Fredericton. Yeah, it was amazing. 2 days of artists on stage from like Montreal and Toronto and all over. And your band, your project would be perfect for this. That's where that's where I performed for the first time in like 8 or 9 years. And we might be involved as an organization next year, BlackLantic, so we will keep you in the loop. I did message you when we were part of a different organization back in 2020 about your music, and it's my fault. I checked their messages. I don't know what happened. So
what was the other organization?
No.
Oh, it's the name that we do not say. Hillary will tell you after.
Right. I'll tell you later. It's gossip.
But we worked together on it before. But before we go, and I can't believe we meant to ask this earlier. Like, you keep talking about your group and your band and the project you worked on collectively. Tell us a little bit about like your your group. You call it a project, band, group. Tell us a little bit about the people around you that help you make this amazing music. Before we
Yeah.
unite to you.
I mean, that's it. It definitely it all comes down to them, man. Like, shout out to Nick Dorado. Shout out to plays keys, a beautiful musician, beautiful person, from Calgary. Met them in Halifax. They currently reside out in Toronto. Nathan Doucette, best drummer I ever met in my life, best human I ever met in my life, is really actually the godfather of our son. So Jeremy Costello, bass player, beautiful voice, classical, operatic voice, just beautiful humans, right? And they help. I shouldn't say help. We created legacy together. Like the three that I mentioned, we all created legacy together. That's the first album that we put out. That's the one that we're talking about, the short list of Polaris, or the long list of Polaris. The album that we put out, who was around with that, like hip hop. Shout out to hip hop historian Sean Ryan Fester. Another one of my homies also does the decks, works behind the boards with the ensemble that we're working with now. Rachel Delano, background singer, beautiful vocal coach, beautiful singer, teaches a lot of students how to sing. Lakita Wiggins, grew up with Lakita Wiggins, old school flavor, you know what I mean? I brought her back out of retirement. She was chilling. I was like, Kita, come sing with me. She's like, yeah. Shout out to King Woos, because that's King Woos' sister. If you guys get a chance, please check out King Woos. And Demarty Dixon, Demarty North Preston, families from North Preston. Another beautiful human. I tend to keep the folks that I feel comfortable with. But Don't Trip, man. You look at the Don't Trip album, you just look at all the features on there, like Owen Sound Lee, like Phoenix Pagliacci, like we got Amira Fleur, Marcus Aurelius Jackman, like Tafari Anthony, like it just keeps going. Like, who else? Nick's, like Zamani Miller from Nova Scotia. Nick's from Nova Scotia, best rapper that we got in Nova Scotia. We got Ransom from New Jersey up on this. Shout out my favorite rapper growing up, like DK, a few producers on this, DK, Fester, like who else? Like, shout out to Jordan Metro too, because Jordan Metro helped with the production, the mixing. Liam Jacob Choi, Trobiz, like who else? Sam Seguin, like Loser Supreme, like so many people got their hands in on this to create this thing to make it what it is, and it's like it wouldn't be what it is without them. Shout out to my wife Julia Hutt for really directing the art with everything that we put out. AquaKultre, like Jules Annie's behind all the art direction of AquaKultre, and like directed Lunch, like one of the co-directed Don't Trip, you know what I mean? Like created that spread that you see on that Don't Trip album, like created that whole thing, recreation of the first picture she ever taken of me, recreated that whole picture, and that's what the cover of Don't Trip is that artwork for both Legacy, artwork for Holos, me and Darren's album, artwork for Bleeding Gums Murphy. Like Jules Annie has been a part of the creation since day one, and like I said, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing what I do without the support of everybody who I mentioned. So
that's amazing. I'm glad you had a chance to shout all those amazing individuals out.
And if I forgot anybody, I'm sorry. John Walsh, don't forget John Walsh. That's my guy, John Walsh. He's my videographer, good friend. Shout out to Shuvo too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. It's all good. What people need to do is, go on their favorite streaming platforms. And I know that doesn't make artists the kind of money they deserve, but go on their favorite streaming platforms and follow and download and click to get all that new upcoming music. I don't know if you have any physical copies, but if people can buy those, you should let them know where they can buy it. I've never done this before, but I'm going to drop out of the call right now and let Hillary finish up the call. Lance, I'm going to reach out to you. I can tell you're a warm, amazing individual, and
Summer Salsa 2023.
On top of just reaching out to you in general, just I'll give you the information for that, because I know they're going to want to have you on. I think the guy's from Montreal. He just maybe hasn't been able to find you yet. But when they hear your music, they're going to want you on that. And I think they pay for the whole band, though. I think that's what made me think about it. I think they're pretty good at letting the whole crew come. So
That's what I'm
he's gonna
talking
kill me
about.
for
Let's
saying
go.
that, but all right, blessings.
go.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I did discover your
Thank
music
you.
3 years ago, and I've loved it ever since. And we'll talk
Thank
soon.
you, Clinton. I appreciate
Bye.
that.
Go
Doug.
be
Most certainly.
successful. I'll close it down. Thank you so much for coming on. Amazing. I forgot that Clinton had listened to your music before, so good that I reconnected all of us together. So for anyone listening who might want to pick up music, stream it, anything, it's AquaKultre, not how you typically spell it. It's a K for culture. If anyone wanted to reach you or get connected, is there anything else you would suggest they do to get a hold of you and your amazing music?
Sorry I didn't put the @AquaKultre on there, but yeah, you can hit me up on Instagram. My website is www.aquakultre.info. At AquaKultre, AQUAKUL. AquaKultre Management @gmail.com if you want to email me. If you want any merchandise, we're doing a lot of great work with selling merchandise. We're selling Afro Funk t-shirts. All proceeds go to George Dixon Center in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We're trying to raise money to upgrade the sound system so we can have all age shows there in the future. You can get all my music for free, basically, on Bandcamp. Everything but Don't Trip, because we partnered with a label on that one. But you could go on Bandcamp and literally just download, pay what you can with all the music. Download as much as you can. I don't care. Do it for free, because the more you download, but yeah. You can get merchandise. You can get Don't Trip albums. You can get LPs. You can get Don't Trip CDs. You can get t-shirts, Afro Funk t-shirts. And yeah, I mean, I'm not really super active on Instagram. I usually just post a lot of Jamaican jokes.
Hey, sometimes that's what people need. That's okay.
I think it's beautiful. I love it. But I mean, a lot of the work that I've been doing is, like I said, we're trying to build a show, but I'm trying to piece together my family history. So shout out to African Heritage Month, African descent, and especially if you are of Nova Scotian descent, it's very important that we trace that where our lineage comes from and where our last names come from. So if you have any leads on the Sampson last name, I would love for you to hit me up, and so I can piece together this family tree.
We do know some New Brunswick genealogists who maybe have her connected to some Nova Scotian ones as well. So hopefully that works out. And you are our first guest for African Heritage Black History Month. So thank you so much. I'll take this moment to thank everyone.
July Talk.
Shout out to July Talk. Shout out to I think some of the greatest white allies, in all honesty. They do very good.
Because they do amazing work, and they know what they're doing. They know how to make people feel comfortable. They know how to make people they know how to do a show. They know how to present themselves. They know what they want. Like artistically, they know what they're doing, and they're just good humans, right? And I really appreciate their extension. I'm really appreciate that they're on. They're tapped in to what AquaKultre is doing. And I would suggest you keep on tapping in, y'all. Keep tapping in.
Absolutely. Well, it takes one to know one. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to anyone who's listened for the whole 53 minutes and made it to the end, as Clinton would say, but since he's not here, you're a real one for getting to the end. I'm at Cropberry. He's at Clinton Davis. You're at AquaKultre with a K. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, watch the video version on YouTube, stream anything AquaKultre, or download it from Bandcamp. And I think I've done it all on my own. I think I went through the laundry list. Lance, AquaKultre, thank you so much. And I'm going to play the outro. Of course. Let me make this musical for a few seconds.